making friends. It sounds simple enough.
It does.
But honestly, it can be like kind of intimidating.
Yeah.
Especially when you're stepping into a whole new environment, right?
Yeah, you're right. It's like
Like starting a new school or something.
it is. It's like navigating a new city. You need a map.
Totally.
And maybe like a friendly guide to just like point you in the right direction.
Exactly.
Right.
And luckily for you, that's exactly what this whole, deep dive is about.
That's right.
We've got a stack of your sources right here.
Yeah.
A mix of articles about building confidence,
Okay.
making friends,
Yeah.
and even some advice from therapists.
Yeah.
All geared towards creating those genuine connections.
I like it.
Especially for, young people figuring out the whole social scene.
Especially for young people.
Yeah, it's tough out there.
It is.
Yeah. What's interesting is how many of these sources, like Generation Next and Burn Bright,
Right.
they both emphasize one key ingredient.
Okay.
Empathy.
It's so important.
Okay, so let's dive into that.
I
Empathy.
can see. Yeah.
I see where Generation Next talks about finding common ground.
Yeah.
But they go deeper than just saying,
Deep.
put yourself in their shoes, don't they?
They do. They actually get into like the science of it.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Did you know that when we practice empathy,
Mm-hmm.
it can actually like calm our nervous system?
Wow. I did not realize that.
It's like our brain lets go of that
Interesting.
fight or flight response
Oh, wow.
and feels safer opening up.
Wow. I didn't realize there was an actual physiological
Yeah.
response. So it's not just about, like, being nice. It's about literally rewiring our brains
Yes.
to be more compassionate.
Exactly.
That's wild.
And Generation Next gives this great example.
Okay.
You know how frustrating it can be when someone cuts you off in traffic?
Ooh, tell me about it.
Right. The worst.
But they suggest that instead of getting angry,
Mm-hmm.
try imagining that person is having a really, really rough day.
Okay.
Maybe they just got bad news or are rushing to the hospital. Like, it's about shifting from judgment to understanding.
That's such a good point.
Right.
I can see how approaching like any situation
Yeah.
with empathy, even if it feels a little like forced at first,
Right.
it could really change your whole mindset.
It can change your whole mindset, yeah.
Well, and, Burn Bright takes a slightly different angle on building empathy
Okay.
by talking about the power of asking questions
Mm-hmm.
to uncover shared interests,
Yes.
which I love.
They suggest having, like, a few go-to questions ready
Yeah.
to, like, break the ice, which I love
I love that.
because it's practical advice you can actually use.
Totally.
Do you have any go-to questions that you use when you meet someone new?
I do, but honestly, it changes depending on the situation. Sometimes it's as simple as like, what are you reading these days? Or have you seen any good movies lately?
I like it.
It's really about being genuinely curious and finding that spark of connection.
Totally.
Yeah.
And Generation Next also talks about those seemingly small, but, like, really impactful things like remembering and using someone's name,
Yes.
making eye contact,
Important.
offering a genuine smile.
Those nonverbal cues speak
Yeah.
volumes.
They do?
It's like you're sending a signal that says,
Oh, yeah.
hey, I see you and I'm happy you're here.
Yes.
I have to admit, when I first read this next part, I chuckled a little bit.
Okay.
Generation Next suggests practicing those nonverbal cues in the mirror.
Oh, yeah, that was a good one.
Like, can you imagine?
I know.
I mean, I'll be honest. The thought of me practicing my approachable smile in the mirror sounds a little silly.
It does sound a little silly.
But honestly, it makes sense.
It does.
The more we practice those subtle cues,
Yeah.
even if it feels weird at first, the more natural and confident we become.
It's like anything else, right?
It is.
Practice makes progress.
Exactly. Speaking of confidence,
Yep.
Generation Next dives into the idea of having a well-being ritual.
Okay.
To manage those uncomfortable feelings that can sometimes sabotage our social confidence.
I was really drawn to that part.
Yeah, it's so important.
He suggests things like journaling, music, spending time in nature, all those things that help us, like, hit the reset button when we're feeling overwhelmed.
Yes. It's about recognizing that our inner world plays a huge role in how we show up socially.
So if we're feeling anxious or insecure,
Yeah.
it's going to be that much harder to project confidence
Yeah.
and connect with others.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And, as we're talking about this,
Yeah.
it makes me think about how important self-awareness is in friendships. When we understand our own emotions,
Yeah.
we're less likely to be, like, controlled by them, you
Right.
know? We can choose how we want to respond rather than just reacting in the heat of the moment.
That's a really good point.
Right.
It's like taking a breath before reacting,
Yes.
which can be so hard,
Oh, I know.
especially for, teenagers who are still figuring out
Especially for teenagers.
how to navigate those big emotions.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And that's where those well-being rituals can be so helpful.
Right?
They give us the tools to manage those ups and downs and show up as our best selves.
I like that. It's like you can't pour from an empty cup.
Right.
You've got to take care of yourself before you can truly show up for others.
Exactly. And speaking of showing up for others, Walden has some really interesting insights about the link between confidence and kindness.
Oh, yes. They talk about the importance of complimenting friends, reminding them of their strengths,
Yeah.
being that positive force in their lives.
And what's so fascinating is that kindness isn't just good for the receiver.
Right.
It's good for the giver, too.
Oh, interesting.
Generation Next even mentions studies that show how practicing compassion can actually reduce stress and anxiety.
Wow, really?
It's like this amazing feedback loop.
That's cool.
The more kindness we give, the better we feel.
All right.
And the more confident we become.
I love that. It's like we're hardwired for connection.
We are.
And kindness is the key that unlocks it.
Totally.
So we've talked about empathy, we've talked about confidence, but what about those times when we're struggling with self-doubt?
Yeah.
Those voices in our head telling us we're not good enough, smart enough, cool enough.
It's so common.
Spill actually had this really intriguing concept about
suspending.
Yes, suspending self-doubt.
That's so powerful.
So instead of getting caught up in those negative self-perceptions, you just suspend them. But how do you actually do that?
It takes practice, but the idea is to start questioning those negative thoughts. Are they really true?
Right.
Or are they just old stories we're telling ourselves?
Okay.
Spill suggests asking yourself, what if the opposite were true?
Oh, interesting.
What if people actually do want to connect with me?
Okay.
It's about shifting your perspective
Right.
and choosing to believe in the possibility of positive connections.
That's a great point.
Right?
It's so easy to get stuck in our own heads.
It is.
Assuming the worst.
Yeah.
But what if we challenged those assumptions and opened ourselves up to the possibility that people genuinely want to get to know us?
I love that.
Right.
And Generation Next brings up another challenge.
Okay.
That can really impact confidence, especially for young people.
Yeah.
And that's social comparison.
Oh, 100%. The pressure to fit in.
Right.
Especially with social media.
Oh, I know.
Constantly bombarding us with these images of perfection.
Yeah.
Can be so overwhelming,
It's so tough.
It's like everyone else has it all figured out.
Right.
Except for me.
Right. And that's where it's so crucial to remember that what we see on social media is often a curated highlight reel.
Totally.
Not real life.
Right.
And this is where Generation Next's advice about focusing on our unique strengths and passions comes in.
Okay.
It's about remembering what makes you,
Yes.
those special qualities and interests
Love it.
that make you interesting and valuable.
It's like finding your tribe.
Yeah.
Instead of trying to
Fit in
with the crowd.
with the crowd. Yeah.
And Spill reminds us that building those deep, meaningful friendships
Yeah.
takes time. It's not an overnight thing.
Right. Rome wasn't built in a day.
Exactly.
And neither are strong friendships.
Yeah.
Burn Bright and Spill
Right.
both emphasize the importance of taking small steps.
What kind of small steps?
It could be anything from joining a club or a group related to your interests.
Okay.
Striking up a conversation with someone in your class, or
Yeah.
even just making an effort to smile and make eye contact with people you encounter throughout your day.
I like it.
Remember, every friendship started with a single interaction.
So true.
Yeah.
Yeah, it really is. It's like that saying, the journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step.
Yes.
You don't have to become best friends with everyone you meet.
Right.
Sometimes just putting yourself out there and having a little courage
Totally.
is a win in itself.
It is a win.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And what we're really talking about here,
Yeah.
shifting our mindset
Okay.
from one of fear and self-doubt to one of curiosity and openness. It's about believing that those connections are out there,
Right.
waiting to be made.
I love that.
Right.
It's we're training our brains to look for those moments of connection
Yeah.
instead of shying away from them.
Yes, exactly.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, I'm curious what stands out to you as the most important takeaway?
Oh.
If you could leave our listener with just one nugget of wisdom
Okay.
about confidence and friendship, what would it be?
That's a great question. I think the biggest takeaway here is that building confidence and making friends is an active process.
Okay.
That's not something that just happens to us.
Right.
It's something we create.
I like that.
It
puts the power back in our hands.
Yeah.
We're not just waiting around hoping to be like chosen for the friendship draft.
Right.
We're actively participating in creating these connections.
Yes, precisely.
Yeah.
It's about showing up authentically, being present and engaged in conversations.
Right.
And embracing our true selves. And, that reminds me of a quote.
Okay.
The only way to have a friend is to be one.
Right?
It sounds so simple.
Yeah.
But it really, it speaks to the heart.
It does.
Of building meaningful relationships.
That's so true. We can't expect others to be, open and vulnerable with us.
Right.
If we're not willing to do the same.
Exactly.
It's about taking that leap of faith.
Yes.
And trusting that the right people will, meet us on the other side.
I love that. And, as we wrap up, it makes me think about how all these ideas we've talked about today, empathy, confidence, kindness, self-awareness, they're all interconnected.
Right.
They're like threads woven together to create the tapestry.
I love that analogy.
A meaningful connection.
Each thread strengthens the others, creating something beautiful and resilient.
Exactly. And that tapestry is always evolving as we grow and change.
So true. Well, that's about all the time we have for today's deep dive.
Okay.
But before we go, I want to leave you with a little something to think about.
Okay.
What's one small step you can take today?
Yeah.
To feel a little more confident or nurture a connection?
I love that.
Maybe it's sending a quick text to that friend you've been meaning to catch up with. Or maybe it's practicing your approachable smile in the mirror.
Yes.
Before heading out the door.
Love it.
Whatever it is, just remember that even the smallest actions can create,
totally
ripples of positivity.
Absolutely.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into building confidence and making friends.
Yes, thank you.
Until next time.
Bye.
Keep exploring, keep connecting.
Keep shining.
And keep shining your light.